The night had been peaceful, one of those rare evenings when Clara finally had time for herself. The rain fell softly outside, tapping against the windows like a lullaby. Wrapped in her oversized pajamas, she sat curled up on the couch, a warm cup of tea in hand, and an old romantic movie playing quietly on the TV. For once there was no work, no calls, no rush, just calm. The soft glow of the screen painted her living room in shifting shades of blue and gold. A candle flickered on the coffee table, and the scent of lavender filled the air. Everything felt still, almost dreamlike. Clara let herself sink deeper into the couch, feeling her eyes grow heavy. It was the kind of night made for rest and peace until the knocking began. At first it was faint, just a soft tap-tap on the door. She frowned, thinking it might be the wind or maybe a loose branch outside. But then it came again. Louder. Urgent. Thud, thud, thud. The sudden sound cut through the quiet like a blade, sending a chill down her spine. Who would come to her house this late in the middle of a storm? Setting her tea down, Clara hesitated. Her house was a bit secluded, a small home at the edge of town. Visitors were rare, especially at night. The knocks grew frantic. Thud, thud, thud. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. Her heartbeat quickened as she moved to the door. "Who is it?" she called out, trying to sound calm but hearing the tremor in her own voice. No answer. She tightened her robe and slowly unlocked the door. The hinges creaked as she opened it, and there, standing in the rain, was a boy. Soaked to the bone, his hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes wide and terrified. It took her a moment to recognize him. "Ethan?" she whispered, stunned. "What on earth? What are you doing here?" Ethan looked about 16, maybe 17 now, the son of her old college friend, Marissa Lane. Clara hadn't seen him in months. The last time she'd spoken to Marissa, everything seemed fine. But now, the boy before her looked like he'd run through hell itself. His clothes were torn, his hands scraped, and his face pale. "I didn't know where else to go," he said softly, his voice cracking. Clara blinked, confused. "Where's your mother?" "What happened?" He just shook his head. "Please, just let me in. They might be following me." Those words hit her like a thunderclap. They following him? Clara didn't understand, but the fear in his eyes was real. Without another thought, she stepped aside. "Come in quickly." Ethan stumbled into the warmth of the living room, dripping water onto the floor. Clara shut the door and locked it behind him, her heart still racing. She didn't know who or what he was running from, but deep down she sensed something terrible had happened. The peaceful night was gone. Whatever this was, it was only the beginning. Clara handed Ethan a towel and guided him toward the couch. The boy's hands trembled as he tried to dry himself, but his eyes never stopped darting toward the windows. He looked like a frightened animal, alert, restless, ready to bolt at any sound. The soft glow of the TV still flickered across the room, but the warmth that once filled the space had turned into something colder, heavier. She sat across from him, trying to stay calm. "Ethan, you need to tell me what's going on. You show up here in the middle of the night, soaking wet, and you say someone's following you. What happened?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the steam rising from the mug she had placed in front of him. His lips were pale, his breathing uneven. Clara noticed the faint bruise on his jaw and the small cut near his temple. He must have been in a fight, or worse. "I tried calling your mom," Clara said, holding up her phone. "She's not answering." "Do you know where she is?" At that, Ethan's expression shifted. A flash of pain, deep, raw, crossed his face. He shook his head slowly. "You can't call her," he said in a whisper so soft she almost missed it. Clara frowned. "Why not?" "Ethan, she'll be worried sick." "No," he said, voice trembling. "They'll find me if you do." "Who will?" She pressed gently. "Ethan, please talk to me. You're safe here." But the boy only wrapped the towel tighter around himself and stared at the floor. His shoulders shook slightly, and Clara realized he was crying, silently, trying not to make a sound. The sight broke her heart. She wanted to reach out, to comfort him like a mother would, but she sensed that whatever had happened was beyond anything she could imagine. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the sound of rain and the low hum of the television. Finally, Ethan spoke again, his voice hollow, empty. "I shouldn't have come here. They'll come for you too." Clara's pulse quickened. "Ethan, you're scaring me." "Who are they?" He looked up then, his eyes glistening under the dim light. People who used to work with Mom, they're not good people. She said if anything ever happened, I should find you. She said you'd keep me safe. Clara froze. His mother had told him to come to her. But why? Marissa had been one of the most level-headed, brilliant people Clara knew. A scientist, always calm, always rational. What could she have been involved in that would make her own son fear for his life? Clara forced a small, reassuring smile despite the storm in her chest. You did the right thing coming here, she said softly. You're safe now. I promise. But as she spoke, a flicker of lightning illuminated the window. And for the briefest moment, she thought she saw a shadow move outside. Someone was out there, watching. And Clara realized that whatever danger Ethan had brought with him had already found them. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the rain outside. Ethan had finally fallen asleep on the couch, his body curled up beneath a blanket, his breathing shallow but steady. Clara sat nearby, unable to rest. Her thoughts ran wild, tangled between worry, confusion, and a creeping sense of fear. He had said too little, only fragments of something larger. They'll find me. Mom told me to run. Those words echoed in her mind. Clara had known Marissa Lane for nearly 20 years, calm, brilliant, and endlessly protective of her son. Whatever she had told Ethan to run from, it had to be something serious. Clara glanced at Ethan's backpack resting by the couch. It was muddy and torn, one of the straps hanging by a thread. For a moment, she hesitated. It felt wrong to invade his privacy, but she needed answers. Guilt weighed heavy on her as she carefully unzipped it. Inside there were a few clothes, a flashlight, a half-empty bottle of water, and a cracked phone, the screen shattered beyond repair. But when Clara reached into the inner pocket, her fingers brushed against something solid and cold. She pulled it out, a small USB flash drive wrapped tightly in black electrical tape. Her heart began to pound. Why would a scared teenager be carrying this? She looked at Ethan, still sleeping soundly, then at the flash drive again. Curiosity and dread drove her forward. Clara powered on her laptop and plugged it in. At first, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared on the screen labeled for Clara. Her breath caught in her throat. She clicked it open. Inside were several encrypted documents and a single video file titled, If You're Watching This, I'm Already Gone. Her hands shook as she pressed play. Marissa's face appeared on the screen, her expression tense and eyes red from crying. Clara, she began, her voice trembling. If Ethan has reached you, it means they've found out. I don't have much time. She looked over her shoulder as if expecting someone to burst into the room. You need to protect him. Don't trust anyone. Not the police, not my colleagues. They'll come for you too if they think you know what's on this drive. Clara sat frozen. Marissa's voice cracked as she continued. I've discovered something that wasn't supposed to exist. They're using children, Clara. They're experimenting. On their minds, their DNA. I tried to stop them and now they want to silence me. Please keep Ethan safe. He's the only one who matters. The video ended abruptly. Clara stared at the screen, her mind reeling. Marissa, her best friend, was either dead or on the run. And now, whatever she had uncovered was sitting on that flash drive in Clara's hands. A sudden noise made her jump. A faint click, like the creak of a floorboard. She turned toward the hallway. Ethan was awake, standing there in the shadows. His eyes were wide with fear. You shouldn't have watched that, he said quietly. Clara's breath caught in her throat as Ethan's words hung in the air. You shouldn't have watched that, he repeated, his voice trembling but steady enough to send a chill through her. He looked older in that moment, not like a frightened boy but someone who had already seen too much. Clara rose slowly from her chair, her mind spinning with questions. Ethan, what did your mother mean in that video? What's going on? What did she discover? He hesitated, his eyes darting toward the laptop still glowing faintly on the table. The video of his mother, her desperate plea, seemed to fill the room like a ghostly echo. Finally, Ethan sank into the couch, burying his face in his hands. You wouldn't believe me, he murmured. Try me, Clara said softly, sitting beside him. For a long moment he said nothing. Then in a low voice he began to speak. My mom worked for a research division called Genodyne Industries, he said. At least, that's what everyone thought it was. They said they were developing medical tech, things to help soldiers recover from trauma faster, to heal wounds that should have taken months. But that wasn't what they were really doing. Clara frowned, her pulse quickening. What do you mean? Ethan looked up, his eyes hollow. They were changing people, testing on them, trying to rewrite what it means to be human. Clara felt her stomach twist. You mean genetic experiments? He nodded. Yeah, my mom found out they were using kids, orphans, refugees, anyone who wouldn't be missed. They were trying to engineer soldiers who didn't feel pain, didn't need sleep, didn't break. His voice cracked. She tried to shut it down, but they found out she'd taken proof. That's why she sent me away. Clara's mind reeled. It sounded impossible, like something out of a sci-fi movie. But Marissa's video had been real. The fear in her eyes wasn't something that could be faked. She told me to run. Ethan continued, his voice trembling. She said if I couldn't reach her, to find you, that you'd help me stay safe. He glanced toward the flash drive still lying on the table. That thing, it's not just evidence. It's a map. It shows where the test sites are, where they keep the children. Clara's chest tightened. Every instinct in her screamed that they needed to go to the police. But Marissa's warning echoed in her mind. Don't trust anyone. Before she could respond, a sudden vibration from her phone drew her attention. She picked it up, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Her heart pounded. Against her better judgment, she answered. A voice, and low, calm, and unfamiliar, spoke through the line. Ms. Turner, we know the boy is with you. Hand him over and no one gets hurt. The line went dead. Clara's fingers shook as she lowered the phone. Ethan looked at her, eyes wide, face pale. They found us, he whispered. Outside, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness, stopping right in front of the house, and in that instant, Clara realized the nightmare Marissa had tried to prevent had just arrived at her door. The headlights outside cut through the rain like twin blades of light. Clara froze, her breath shallow. The room that had once felt warm and safe now felt suffocating. Ethan's face was pale, his wide eyes fixed on the window. Neither of them moved for several seconds, and listening. Then came the unmistakable sound of car doors closing. They're here, Ethan whispered. Clara's instincts took over. She reached for the lamp and turned it off, plunging the room into darkness. Get your things, she said urgently, her voice low but steady. Now. Ethan grabbed his backpack, slinging it over his shoulder as Clara peeked through the curtains. Two figures were stepping out of a black SUV parked at the curb. Both wore dark coats, moving with quiet precision. These weren't random intruders. They were professionals. A knock echoed through the house. Not frantic like Ethan's earlier, calm, confident, commanding. Ms. Turner, a man's voice called out, smooth and unhurried. We just want to talk. Clara felt her pulse hammering in her throat. Talk? No. Whatever they wanted, it wasn't conversation. She motioned to Ethan and whispered, Back door. Quietly. They crept through the kitchen, their footsteps muffled by the rain drumming on the roof. Clara unlocked the back door just as a loud crash came from the front, the sound of the main door being kicked open. Go, she hissed. They slipped into the storm, the cold rain soaking them instantly. The backyard led into a stretch of trees, a small patch of woods that bordered the neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was dark enough to hide them. They ran, branches whipping against their faces, mud clinging to their shoes. Behind them, flashlights cut through the darkness and voices shouted commands. They went this way. Clara's lungs burned. She wasn't built for this. Not for running through forests in the middle of the night. But adrenaline kept her moving. Ethan ran ahead, his smaller frame darting between trees like a shadow. They stopped when they reached a narrow stream, panting. Clara bent over, clutching her knees. Ethan, she gasped, who are these people? They worked for Genodyne, he said between breaths. They want what's on the drive. My mom said it's the key, the formula that could finish the project. Clara blinked, struggling to process it all. Formula? For what? Ethan looked at her, his eyes glinting faintly in the rain. To control human evolution, he said simply. To make perfect soldiers. To make sure no one could stop them. Before Clara could respond, a beam of light swept across them from the trees. There! Someone shouted. Run! Clara yelled. They sprinted along the stream, splashing through the water. Every heartbeat felt like an explosion in her chest. But just when it seemed they'd be caught, Ethan pointed ahead. There! Through the trees stood an old wooden cabin, half collapsed but still standing. A place that looked forgotten by time. They stumbled inside, slamming the door shut. Ethan turned to her, his voice trembling. Mom said there'd be a safe house. And as thunder roared outside, Clara realized this chase wasn't over. It was only the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous. The cabin was cold, damp, and smelled of dust and rotting wood. But for now, it was shelter. Clara leaned against the wall, catching her breath, her heart still racing from the run through the rain-soaked forest. Ethan sank to the floor, clutching his backpack to his chest. Outside, the storm raged on, masking their heavy breathing and the distant shouts of the men still searching for them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the rhythmic patter of rain against the old tin roof. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "This was one of Mom's safe houses," he whispered. "She said there would be something here to finish what she started." Clara's gaze swept across the cabin. Broken furniture, old crates, a dusty lantern on a shelf. It didn't look like much of a safe house, but then she saw it. A loose floorboard near the hearth. She knelt down and pried it open, revealing a small metal box. Inside was another flash drive, this one labeled simply, "Truth." Clara stared at it. 2 flash drives, one containing evidence, the other perhaps something even more dangerous. "What's on this one?" she asked. Ethan's face was pale.
"The real data," he said quietly.
"Mom made a fake one in case they caught me. But this has everything. The research, the subjects' names, the formula itself." Clara held the drive tightly. She could feel the weight of what it represented, not just data but power. The kind of power that could change everything. Or destroy everything. "What happens if we release it?" she asked, her voice low. Ethan looked at her with eyes far too old for his age. "People will die," he said simply. "Governments, corporations, they'll fight over it. Mom said humanity isn't ready. That's why she wanted it hidden." Clara sat back, her mind torn in 2 directions. On one hand, she could expose Genodyne, bring justice for Marissa and all the victims. But on the other, she'd be unleashing chaos the world couldn't control. Ethan stood and walked to the fireplace. "She told me the choice would be mine," he said softly. "But I don't think I can do it." Clara rose slowly, walking to him. "You don't have to," she said gently. "Your mother trusted me to protect you, not the data." Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the cabin in an eerie glow. Clara looked down at the flash drive one last time, her reflection shimmering on its metal surface. Then, without another word, she tossed it into the fire. The plastic melted instantly, curling and blackening until it was nothing but ash. Ethan stared at it, then at her. "You destroyed it," he whispered. "Yes," Clara said softly, her eyes fixed on the flames. "It's better this way." For a long moment they stood there in silence, watching the fire burn. Then Ethan's voice broke the stillness. "You saved me," he murmured. Clara smiled faintly, her voice almost a whisper. "No, Ethan, your mother did." As dawn broke over the wet forest, Clara knew life would never return to normal. She had burned the secret that could change humanity, and in doing so, she had saved it.